Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, I'm revisiting a palette that was gifted to me right in the beginning of my painting journey. I no longer have this palette, but I still have this footage of me sketching it and I wanted to share it with you. So, this palette is big. Actually, it is huge, heavy, and also incredibly sturdy. It might even look very familiar to the classic Sakurakoi watercolor palettes, but there is a difference I think makes this palette more interesting. It not only holds 48 half pans, but the pans are inserted into dividers, which then slot into the palette. Each divider holds 6 half pans, and that makes it super easy for you to take a few colors out and have a small color selection to take with you if you wish. I'll take some of these dividers apart towards the end of the video so you can see how versatile they can be. With this palette, you also get a removable mixing tray, which can then be slotted on any side of the palette, and the lid could also be used to hold the paper while you paint. You have 2 sponges on either side of the palette, which can be removed or replaced, and originally there were also 2 water brushes, which were quite good. I did enjoy having this palette when I had it, and if you are a beginner not knowing where to start, or know someone who would like to take their first steps into watercolor, I would 100% recommend you get them a palette like this. Now, I know the usual advice for beginner artists is to get fewer colors and to go for quality over quantity. I've been painting since 2017 and I think this advice is one of the best ones out there. As a matter of fact, nowadays I will often only buy the recommended primary colors from new brands of paints I want to try. However, for someone who has no idea if they will like the paint, someone who doesn't understand anything about color theory, or even knows that it is a thing, which was my case when I started, someone who just wants to casually paint from time to time, or even someone who would like a set to use in their coloring books, a palette like this has everything they could ever want. So I wouldn't dismiss this watercolor palette. Also, the fact that this palette has those dividers also means that anyone could easily select their primaries out of the palette, learn color theory with a very limited selection, but also have the flexibility of getting very awesome convenience colors ready to use without any mixing. Not everyone enjoys mixing their colors from scratch, so this palette does give you the best of both worlds. The palette I owned said it was from the brand Superior and it was gifted to me in 2018. But even today, you are able to find similar palettes on your usual online shopping websites if you search for 48 color watercolor palette long enough. I managed to find one on Amazon and I've linked it in the description in case you'd like to check it out. From what I remember, the only downside of this palette was the texture of the watercolors. They are not your usual dry, chalky cakes, but instead, if you use the watercolor super concentrated, with barely enough water, they might feel slimy, almost gel-like. As it is very common with watercolor palettes marketed for kids, the color payoff isn't always the best with all the colors available, so I remember having the tendency to use less water so I could get more color payoff right on the first layer, hence the texture issue. But to be fair, the slimy texture can also sometimes happen even with some professional paints if you don't dilute them enough with water. Obviously, these watercolors can't be compared with professional grade paints, which are much more expensive and have a lot more pigment in them, but for the cost of the whole palette and what it includes, they are definitely worth it for anyone starting their watercolor journey. This video is also tied to me recently revisiting a lot of my old palettes and giving them some much needed love. I have already shared a video of me cleaning my Winsor&Newton Cotman palette, and I have been recording another palette cleaning video featuring 4 other palettes that were needing the same TLC. Going back to these palettes reminds me of the feeling of being a beginner and not being afraid of learning, trying new things, and also failing. You see, these past couple of years, I've been feeling very afraid of failing. I've put so many hours and effort into learning how to paint. What if I finally get stuck and can't improve anymore? This fear not only slowed down the pace in which I used to paint, but also affected the complexity of the paintings I ended up doing in these past couple of years. I slowly stopped putting in as much effort as I used to, and instead I've been painting more abstract paintings with a lot more emphasis on color mixing and color theory plays. Don't get me wrong, I still think this kind of color play is important in getting to know your supplies, but to be really honest with you, from all the subjects and styles of painting I've tried since I started, realistic paintings are my favorite ones. They are a labor of love, and they do take time and patience, but I always love the outcome of what I end up creating, even if they don't turn out as perfect as I want them to be. I always learn so much with each painting. It's a process I enjoy and that I dearly miss. This year, I do want to get back into painting more complex and realistic paintings. I want to take time to trace, yes, I still trace, and no, it isn't cheating, and analyze every shadow and crease in the reference. I miss waiting for a layer to dry while I go off and do something else and come back to the painting to see if it needs another layer to get the value just right. My plan since this year started has been to get back into experimenting with my supplies and actually use them up. I've been painting with limited color selections, trying to use up all the colors in my palette, and even sharing the outcome over on my Instagram. I've also been going through my sketchbooks and making sure they are finished. My next step is to get back into some memberships and paint from tutorials, even if I don't follow the process in the video exactly as who is teaching it. I'm hoping that by slowly easing myself back into this process, I'll be able to start 2026 with some realistic paintings of my own. It's been too long since my last original realistic painting, and I can't wait to get back to where I used to be. You might be wondering why I'm sharing these details with you, but I would like you to keep me accountable. I also want to start sharing a bit more about my creative journey so far as a self-taught artist. Perhaps I'll be able to inspire others to create, just like others have inspired me in the past and still inspire me every day I come into this platform. As a matter of fact, for my next video, I'm planning on sharing a flip-through of my first sketchbook and some loose paintings from my early painting days. I love to see other artists' sketchbooks, and I'd love to have a visual record of mine here on this channel. I love how sketchbooks capture the passing of time and how an artist's style has evolved. Perhaps I could even try to paint something I've painted in the past to see how my own skills have improved or changed. Let me know if that is something that interests you. As for the painting I did with these watercolors, I can't guarantee that the texture you see on the dry painting is not due to the paper, but I have a feeling it is. From my experience, the paper quality is a lot more important than the paint quality. So, although there are some weird blotches here and there on my color swatches, I wouldn't worry too much. A set like this will be perfect if you are a beginner, and it will get you anything you need to play around and get a feel for this medium before investing into something more expensive. I even managed to mix a quite decent black from some of the primers in this set. One thing I noticed is that these watercolors don't migrate much on white paper, and I think the reason is that slimy gel-like texture I mentioned early in the video. Another thing I wanted to mention before I end this video is that I try to be a bit more experimental with the footage and played around with new camera angles and how often I change them throughout the video. I would love to know what you thought about it compared to my usual top-down only videos. Videos recorded top-down only are great for time lapses, but I'm hoping that adding some side shots to my videos makes them not only more interesting, but also makes you feel like you're looking through my eyes when I paint. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for more if you haven't already. Also, if you watched this video all the way through the end, please leave a leaf emoji in the comments below. Not only are emojis cute, but also it helps a lot with the algorithm. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video!